that's one thing that people have to have the confidence in themselves. They have to have that understanding that it is not a quick win situation. If you're in it for a quick win, then guess what? You're going to be surprised. It's not going to be that easy.
Welcome to the Break Free Podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. As everybody knows, this podcast is focused on interviewing brilliant minds that have been able to create businesses that gives them freedom. And also that makes this world a better place. Very important. And today we have a beautiful example of that. We have Vinay Shah coming from England, a good friend of mine and an amazing entrepreneur. Vinay, welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Excellent. So, Vinay, for the audience, so they get to know you a little bit more, can you tell me your full name, where do you live, and what is your business about?
Sure. So, David, my name is Vinay Shah. I'm from England, London, and my business is I'm a wealth manager and a financial advisor, and I look after clients' money and wealth and help them to achieve their goals and aspirations for them and their families.
Beautiful. And how long have you been doing that?
So, David, this year is going to be a special year for me. It's 30 years in April. So
30? 30?
30.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I always say to everyone who asks me, I've been there, got the T-shirt, been around the block, seen everything that I could possibly see, but every year I always get surprised by something new that I need to learn or something new that I need to know. So this is an endless journey.
You know, my heart always goes with wealth managers because you get affected directly by recessions, directly. And I think I know what you guys do, and you actually help manage the wealth of people so that they can actually eventually have financial independence, or if they already have it, to keep their financial independence. And all of a sudden, like in 2008, before you know, we lose 30% of the assets in value. And I don't know how you're still in business. It's like you must be adding so much value over the years, and you must have so much wisdom around money management that your clients must have not only survived those horrible events in the financial system, but also thrive after that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, David. So not just 2007, 2008. Obviously, we've had the pandemic in 2020, 21. And I've seen various recessions in the past as well, dot-com bubble, to name just a few. And it's, you know, the markets, although I always advocate investing for the long term, the markets sometimes do 20, 30% drops, and it does worry people, and people do question why they're investing. And I think it's my job to really steer them through these difficult times and just assure them that they've done the right thing, they're, you know, making all the right decisions, and just constantly keep giving them confidence that basically the things that they're doing is the right things, because ultimately short-termism in the investment field especially doesn't work. You know, when you make an investment today and it falls 10, 20% the next day, it's a difficult it's a difficult process for people to handle. Sometimes they think, oh gosh, why did I do that? Mm-hmm. But we have to keep reminding them that it's a long-term process. As long as you and I are having those conversations, as long as you and I are clear on what the ultimate aim is of your investments, and we adjust, it's like, you know, if you think about it, always treat it like as if you're on a flight. Yeah, you take off with all the greatest intentions in the world. You know why you're investing and everything else, and suddenly hit a pocket of turbulence. What does the pilot do? The pilot doesn't just fly through that turbulence. The pilot guides the plane around that turbulence, brings you back on track. We go through a bit of more turbulence. You guide again, you turn, you deviate, you move back again. But ultimately, you get to your destination, you land, hopefully safely, and everything is as it should be, and the pilot's done his job, and you've achieved the sort of outcome of where you want to be in terms of landing in a destination where you are ultimately going to go and that's where you started that journey for.
And people are very scared of investing. I was one of those myself. But then, so I'm a born again Christian, so I read the Bible a lot nowadays, especially. And I just reminded me of the parable of the talents. I don't know if you heard it before, but basically Jesus was teaching people about investing, and he made this parable that says, this master left talents. There is the currency back then, right? So this master left, these talents to three people, right? The first person invested the talent and created double. The second person invested the talent and created a little bit more, not as much as the first one, but he created a little bit more. The last person was so scared about losing the money on the investment that he kept it. He put it on the ground, he kept it. When the master came back, he says, show me what you did with my money. And he says, well, master, here is you gave me these talents, and this is double the money that you gave me. The other one I did, time and a half. And then the last one says, master, I kept your talent. I didn't lose it. Here it is. And the master says, your talent is going to be taken away from you, and I'm going to give it to the one who made the most money. Because the ones that don't invest don't have anything. They have the least, and even the little what they have, they will lose. And for me, it's an idea of, it's not about making a crazy investment or doing, the way people invest with their emotions, right? I am guilty of that. I lost a lot of money in cryptocurrency because I was led by fear of missing out. When you invest with fear, you're going to lose massively. But the way you do it, right, is basically what I just said, right? Invest it wisely, do it in a long term, in a way that is proven that it will actually bring results, with patience and without emotions, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think the biggest key to it you mentioned is emotions. I think a lot of people's investment decisions are led by emotion. And sadly, sometimes those emotions play into all the sort of headlines that people hear. We always hear about all the negativity in the world. There's a war going on. There's inflation going on. Interest rates are going up. Price of food is going up. Price of petrol is going up. And we start beginning to question, why did we invest when the markets dip? What you have to understand is that there's a lot of stats around this, and that is to do with the fact that the people who invest for the long term, they will always see ups and downs. But by trying to time the markets, which is what a lot of people try and do, they ultimately lose. Because if you're out of the market, even for a 20 or 30-day period, in a 5-year period of time, you could potentially lose anything between 50 and 100% of the potential return you would have had. And I always get questioned all the time about the markets are too high, the markets are too low, and people make decisions based on emotion. So when the markets are down, they feel the fear, they think it's not the right time to invest. But guess what? That is absolutely the right time to invest. And the people who then say the markets are too high, again, want to get out as quick as possible because they have fear that the money they've made or the investment return they've had is going to be lost. So you have to try and manage people's expectations. You have to manage their confidence. And it comes back to the same thing. You need someone to guide you. Like I say, we've seen plenty of, situations all over the last 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, where the markets have turned, the markets have gone bad. But ultimately, there isn't a better investment in the long run that will provide a consistent return. I know the ride can be sometimes bumpy, but you have to just stay with it. As long as the plan and the focus of that plan is still valid, then there should be no reason why you do not carry on with that investment. And the people who sit there and put money in the bank and just wait, I'll give you a classic example. I have a client of mine who I've been talking to for nearly 10 years. And in that time frame, the markets are not the right time. Markets are not the right time. Leave the money in the bank. Leave the money in the bank. And guess what? Over that 10-year period, his money actually has lost value because of inflation and not doing something with that money. And I feel sad for him that he's not making those decisions. And sometimes it's our job. We try and convince people, but sometimes people have to take that leap of faith as well and have to understand that we've been doing this job a long, long time. If it wasn't the right thing for them to do, we wouldn't be advocating it.
Exactly.
And I think that's where sometimes get a bit confused. And then they see their friends in the pub who are telling them, oh, invest in cryptocurrency, invest in this, invest in that. You know, it's you know, you take their information and react to that more than you do to someone who's a professional in the market. You know, and it's a sad thing. Sometimes these people are led by those sort of conversations they have with their friends, people in the pub, whatever you want to call it.
You know, so two things. You just proved that the parable is true, right? They left the money in the bank. It's like the person that just kept the talent and hid it, right?
Yes, exactly.
They left the money in the bank and they lost. Especially in the last 2 years in Canada, they say recession is 8%. It's like 15%, right? I mean, not recession, the inflation, right?
Yes.
If people had money in cash, they basically lost 15% of the value of that money.
Yeah, and sadly, the thing is now we've got interest rates which are rising, and people then say, oh, look, you know, in the UK at the moment, we can get 3-4% interest rates suddenly when it was 0.5%. But your inflation rate at the moment is anything between 8 and 10%. So how can you win on that basis?
You keep losing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For me, greed and fear have made me lost a lot of money investing. However, I have made a lot of money investing too. Actually, so back to the cryptocurrency play. I started investing in cryptocurrency because I'm a computer scientist. I run a software company that builds technology, including cryptocurrency, tokens, and blockchain. So I understood. So when I started investing, it was the way the Bible says, right? Invest constantly. Just put your money there every month. Actually, in Proverbs, it actually says, constant investment will bring you wealth. Speculation and fear will bring you calamity. It's there, but we don't read, right? So I was doing this since 2019, you know, steady. What happened? It started to go up. I got greedy, right? I cash out other investments, like, you know, like my in Canada, we call it RRSP, which is like our savings plan.
The pension plan.
I cashed that out and I put it in crypto. And I mortgaged a property, crypto. And when it got to 65,000, is when I put the most money, because I was making money all the way up. So I thought it's gonna get to 500,000, right?
Yes.
A year later, 16,000.
Oh, wow.
However, I learned my lesson, because when I lose, I go back to the truth, right? I go back to my foundation, right? So when I read that, you know, fear and greed causes calamity and consistency is what makes you wealthy, then I said, I haven't lost because I haven't sold anything. So I just kept the investment is there, and I'm not moving it, I'm not touching it. And so I'm just praying that it's going to go back up, and, you know, at least I'm going to break even. And I know it's going to happen because I understand the technology, but it's going to take 10 years. It's not, see, the problem is we get greedy, right? You see people I saw a friend that made $2 million in 4 months with Bitcoin. And he cashed out and he made 2 million. I'm like, oh, I want to do the same, right? Yummy, right? And greed takes in. And then you start investing for the wrong reasons. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's again down to that word we were saying earlier, it's the emotion that get carried away with it, right? The amount of times that in the last 2-3 years I've been asked, why don't I invest in crypto? Why don't I invest in crypto? Why shouldn't I invest in crypto? And you have to say, look, it's fine to invest some money in crypto. It's good that you have some risk, but don't go beyond your means in those type of investments, because ultimately, you know, they are volatile, they are risky, and hey, who knows which cryptocurrency is actually going to go up? If there are, I don't know, I believe there are 35 to 40,000 different cryptocurrencies. How do you know which one is the right one? So we get asked this all the time. And I have to say that, look, it depends what type of ride you want to have, right? Ultimately, do you want the ride where the roller coaster goes up very quickly, comes down very quickly, goes up very quickly, or do you want to have safe, steady, long-term growth? Because you can't have both. You have to take a view You have to decide what type of investor you are. And if you are going to risk money, then risk only what you can afford to lose.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually that rule has saved me many times. I never borrow to invest ever. I mean, when I mortgaged, when I mortgaged the property was fully paid for, and I actually took out the gain, the capital gain that property gave me. So
Right.
it was basically I just diversified, right? That's what I did. But I've seen people that they go bankrupt because they borrow money against their investments.
Yes, absolutely. And just go back to a very story of very young Vinay. I was fortunate enough that in London, we had obviously the London Stock Exchange. And whilst I was at university, the London Stock Exchange at that time was going through a massive amount of change. So basically it had opened up, the deregulation, everything else was happening. And can you imagine at the age of 18, 19, I had access to a stockbroker, I had an access to an account where I could easily have taken my investments up to, this is going back a few years, but I had an access to an open line of credit of about £100,000. Now that's a lot of money for 18, 19-year-old, right? To be able to risk. And, I learned those lessons, like you said, very early on. You take only the risk on what you can afford to lose. I used to love going to the stock exchange in my lunch breaks, can you imagine, to just see how the penny shares, which was the thing of those days, was how they were doing, right? So suddenly you see a penny share that's gone up from 2 pence to 20 pence. And you know what? Just like you, it's going to carry on going up to £1. And guess what? Within a few months,
Crashed.
So I suppose we learned that lesson very early. And if you're going to do investment, the other thing you need to do is make sure that you're diversified. Make sure that you have not just one type of investment in your portfolio. You need to diversify. And if you're going to diversify not just one or two shares, make sure you've got a portfolio. And a lot of people don't really have enough cash to be fully diversified if they're going to be just doing it themselves. So being invested with a company or a fund which is invested in a huge amount of different companies is actually a good thing, because even if one or two of those companies do go under, it's just a ripple in your portfolio. It's not a total loss, which could potentially be the case if you've got 5 or 6 different shares and 2 go under.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the sort of young Vinay who learned those lessons very early on. I'm not very good at this game. I would rather leave it to the experts to get on with it and do what they need to do with my investments. And, and that's led me obviously to be very much of an advocate for long-term investment and also investing in the right investment funds, etc.
That's fascinating. Like, I never heard an 18-year-old playing with the stock market that way. Tell me, how do you get into this whole world of wealth management, right? Like, what was your mindset when you were a kid? Were you born for this? Like, how do you figure this out?
You know what? I've always been a person who has been interested in investments. As I said, from a very young age, when I was at university, I used to sort of subscribe to penny stock recommendation sheets and all this sort of thing. I used to read Investors Chronicle and all of these things. Business has always been very much something I've been interested in, and more importantly, how people make money. But I think from my perspective, in terms of the particular wealth management side of things, I actually fell into it, if you can believe it. I actually didn't plan on a career in wealth management. I actually came out of university with a business studies degree, wanted to be an accountant. 1992 is when I came out of university, and guess what? We were in the middle of a recession. I sent out hundreds of CVs to all these accountancy firms. Some didn't even reply. Some said, thank you very much, but we're not recruiting. And I just, 6 months, I was basically lost. I wasn't thinking what I was doing next. And then suddenly I went to a financial services fair. So I thought financial services, must be some accountancy firms there. So I went along and I realized these were insurance companies and they were financial services companies rather than accountancy companies. So one of the people I spoke to there basically said to me, look, why don't you take a chance? Why don't you just give it a go? Whilst you're waiting for that ideal job to come along, become an advisor. And I did. And basically, I've never thought about accountancy since, to be quite honest.
Oh my God, that's so it was a chance. It
It
was,
was a
well,
total chance.
fate. It's your fate,
It's
right?
fate. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't plan on being a wealth manager in my early days at all. That never occurred to me. But one thing I've learned is that wealth management covers so many areas and you can make such a big impact on people's lives. And that's what really sort of gives me focus and drive in terms of making sure that people do the right things, just making people safe, and helping them with that process. And so that's what really, it baffles me that how many people now, if I look back, I've got investors or I've got clients of mine who have been with me for 25 years plus. So,
Wow.
I remember them as young people, if you like. I remember the whole process they've gone through. They've got married, they've had children, they bought a property, and now I look at their children and think, wow, you weren't even born when I knew your mum and dad. So it's an amazing journey to be in. And now I can see those parents having the lifestyle, if you like, and also the sort of confidence and abilities to provide for their children. And they're now trying to get their children on board. So it's an amazing journey to see that. And, advocates, I suppose, because if they didn't like what I was doing, then, hey, I wouldn't be with them for the last, they wouldn't be with me for 20, 25 years. And that just is just an amazing, it's an amazing journey.
And those people are blessed. The people that, number one, found you, because not everybody is as good as you are. There is a lot of people in the wealth management industry that they actually make people lose money because they are with fear and greed too, right?
True.
But they were blessed to find you, and they also were blessed to play it by the game. Every time that we make life complicated, we lose. Life is simple, right? For me, life is simple. The older I get, the more I realize that the more complications and the more different structures I try to figure out, the more I get into chaos and losses. Basically, I'm going to give you the principle. So simple. Live below your means. And with the difference, have a good portion of that to is invested on the long term. You'll be fine.
Yes.
That's it. Don't spend more than you make, and with the savings, grab a good portion of that for investing, for long-term investing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a rule of thumb where I say to people, look, they always ask me, how much should I be investing? And I always say, look, really, of whatever investment or whatever income you have, obviously you've got to cover your bills. That's first. But whatever you've got in excess of that, you should be investing at least 10, 20%. Doesn't matter how small the amount is. If you constantly just make sure that you invest that amount and you keep building that amount over time, it can grow dramatically because of compounding. That's the wonder of compounding. But basically, the markets, if you stay in the markets, if you get a simple sort of 6-7% return every year, then over a 10-year period, guess what? Your money's doubled.
And even if you drop down 30% in every recession, which is the case,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So there'll be years when you lose money, there'll be years when you'll gain. All you're looking for is an average return, and compounding will do the rest. And just keep putting money in. It doesn't matter with small amounts, doesn't matter, but don't go beyond your reach. Just invest what you can. And wonders, it surprises me that so many people fail to think that, okay, even if I invest, a couple £100, £500, whatever they can afford, and just start somewhere rather than not doing anything, and just build on that value as you go along. Time, we all have times when money's not easily readily available, and there are other times when we have comfortable situations. You just increase or decrease as the case may be, but just make sure you invest something for the future
and be constant.
Exactly.
Look at it as a monthly thing. Just set aside your money and put it in there, and eventually the years and the compounding will take care of you.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
How were those first years? Because it's not easy to get clients to trust you, to get the knowledge on how to do the investing. I guess that you had rigorous training from your provider, from your investment providers.
So what actually happens is when I first came into the industry, as I say, there are a number of exams that people have to sit. being a young man at that time, exams came naturally because you went to university and you just sat them. So the actual entry exams, I think there was 4 or 5 at that time. You just went online, multi-choice, and you just basically go through those. That gave you the opportunity to start looking after people's money. I started basically, if you think about this, I started on my mum's kitchen table with a phone and a paper and pen, that's it. And basically the first 2 or 3 years were extremely hard because one thing, I'm a young man, I've not proven myself. People find it difficult to start trusting you because they don't think you may stay in this industry for the long term. So it is quite a challenge from that perspective. It took me a while. The first couple of years were very, very tough, and you do start questioning, what am I doing? Why am I in this? Why am I in this industry? But as you get more confidence, and that comes from a lot of reading, a lot of information thrown at us from providers, a lot of textbooks, you start learning, slowly but surely you start learning all these things. And then little pearls of wisdom you start learning little pearls of wisdom, you start using those with your clients, you get them to a point where they trust you, and they then start imparting money with you, and slowly but surely you start building. But I have to say, for anyone starting today in business, it is not easy. This thing around building a business, in any time, I mean, it is tough. So, we went through the same thing. I had to basically start from scratch, as I say, with 0 clients, £0 in assets under management, all of these things. And as time goes on, you just start building. And when you start getting the trust of people, and they start feeling confident with you, they start referring you to other people. And that's where the magic really happens, because you've already got advocates for what you're doing. They're already quite comfortable with what you're doing, and they're quite happy then to refer you to other friends and family and colleagues and things like that. And that's really the time you start making that sort of the biggest gains.
That's beautiful. So VS Wealth Management is your own firm, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
How did that happen? Because I know at the beginning you have to work for somebody, and then eventually you can burst off on your own business. However, I know that even working for somebody, you have to bring your own clients. So that alone makes you an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, so VS Wealth Management. So basically, as a financial advisor, I've had many guises, but you're right. I started off in another financial services business. I learned my ropes there. I got to understand the market for about 2 or 3 years. And then after that, I thought, you know what, this is not for me. I need to really now start looking at this from my own perspective, because I feel that it's time for me to branch out. And that's when I basically started my own business. VS Wealth is the sort of latest, I suppose, incarnation of the businesses I've had. I've had 2 or 3. The main business I had before was a financial services business as well. And that was an independent financial advisor business, which was called Moneywise Financial. And as I came into the new, about 8 years ago, I joined a bigger practice or a bigger business who provide me with services and make sure that I'm trained properly. So it's like a franchise, if you like. But VS Wealth is then born out of that, and that's the business that I now run in terms of the sort of board on the, that's the company name that I now have.
Tell me, out of 30 years, that's a long time. I mean,
Happy to tell me about it.
Most businesses go bankrupt in 2 years, right? And businesses that make it to 10, it's almost none. You're 30 years. In your trajectory, what has been the biggest problem that you encountered in your business, and how did you were able to go through it and survive and thrive after?
I think there's 2 or 3 things there. One, I think as you build your business, you have to take the knocks. Not everyone is going to say yes to you straight away. It takes time to build people's trust. It takes time to build their confidence in what you're doing. They want to make sure that they get to know you. You want to get to know them. So that's something that happens over time. And I think, with 30 years experience now, I can sit back and look at those early years and say, wow, they were really tough years. When you look back, I could have been, like if I'd got my ideal role as an accountant, I would have had a steady income coming in for those first few years. I decided not to do that, working from home, not having any sort of other sort of, responsibilities and liabilities, if you like, gave me that time to, build something where I started earning a little bit at a time, and I started building on top of that as I went along. So yeah, and I would say that that's one thing that people have to have the confidence in themselves. They have to have that understanding that it is not a quick win situation. If you're in it for a quick win, then guess what? You're going to be surprised. It's not going to be that easy. I cannot even think how many sort of bumps in the road that you have. In that time frame, there's markets do their own thing. Clients sometimes do their own thing. They don't listen to the advice they're being given. You have to be able to accept that the rejection sometimes, that's a hard thing. A lot of people find that really tough. When someone says, no, I don't want to invest with you, you're suddenly thinking, oh my God, why not? So that's a difficult thing. You have to build a character that's becomes quite resilient. And I think if I were to say the biggest challenge to growth is getting the right people around you. So I mean, as in a support team, I mean, as in people who are in your business, supporting what you do, and, finding those right people who understand who you are, how you work, and have a very similar mindset to yourself. That becomes a challenge because not everyone operates the way you do. I've always said to all of my people who work with me, look, client comes first. Money will follow, client comes first. Some people don't have that mindset.
Yeah.
And then if they're working for you, it doesn't work because you're telling them, hang on a minute, why have you done it this way? Why did you not do this? You have those challenges then because they don't understand that it's not about the money, it's about the client. As long as they are looked after, as long as they are happy and satisfied with the work you're doing for them, the money will follow.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always sort of based my business or built my business. And the biggest challenge, as I say, has always been finding the right people to surround yourself with.
We go back to ancient wisdom, right?
Yes.
Going back, reference in the Bible, it clearly says that you will get what you give. So, but you have to give first in order to get. So what you're saying is clear. You have to add value to your clients first, and then you will in turn receive value. That's why these scammers, these people that take advantage of other people, they will always going to end up miserable because they will actually get what they give. So if they gave, lies and if they stole money from people, eventually that's what they will get, right? And
Very
it's a
true.
fundamental law. Again, life is simple, isn't it?
And just by building on that, I think, David, is I very much firmly believe in karma, right? So like you said, it's a case of you have to build that trust, you have to build that faith with the people, you have to treat them in the right way, be honest, be sensible, and, don't rip people off. And that karma eventually comes back and you get it back. Because otherwise, if you do the wrong things, you know what? I can't sleep at night. It doesn't work.
You're conscious, right? Because you're a good person. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you see these people who are doing these things to people and you think, oh my gosh, how sad, do I want to be involved with that? No, there's plenty of get rich quick schemes out there. People do get, unfortunately, wrapped up in these things. And sadly, they do lose a lot of money. And, you just feel sorry for them and you just can't, you just feel, what can you do? How can I help?
What's in the future for you? 30 years of success, a lot of struggles, but you have made a lot of people very financially stable. What's in the future for you?
So for me, I think I want to be in a place where I can leave a legacy. And what I mean by that is the business that I have now, I want it to be there long beyond where I'm still part of it, if you see. It's not just about something that's, done the right thing for me. It's more a case of how can I now, for me, the next generation, the next people who are going to give me on continuity to look after my clients is a really key part of where my mind is at the moment. Ultimately, I want to be in a position where I can start sort of stepping back a little bit and enjoying some life as well. Not working, sometimes crazy hours, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. What I mean by that. You do whatever it takes, basically, when it's your business.
Yeah.
So I want to be in a position now to say, okay, I can get that company that's managing itself, is giving me that freedom. We're almost there. There's always a bit more to do. But ultimately, I think I want to be in a position where I can say, look, I've left VS Wealth in a great place. That company will continue, and it will continue to look after the clients that I've, been devoted to for so many years. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Vinay, thank you so much. A couple of last questions, because I want to respect your time. If you had access to talk to your 25-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Oh, wow. Yes. I would say be patient.
Yeah.
As a young man, obviously you want everything to happen yesterday. And with the experience I've now got, look, be patient. As long as you're on the right track, then faith, God, whatever will do you right in the long run. There's been plenty of times when you've gone down the wrong road, you've maybe made mistakes and you realize these mistakes. But the great thing is those mistakes are where you actually learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your family. You learn a lot about people around you. So those are the sort of things that I, within hindsight, you find that experience as you get older. As a young person, I would say the other thing is be clear in what you want. Be clear, because a lot of times what happens is I'm guilty of this as well. Sometimes what happens, you start down the road with this business, suddenly you see a shiny thing over there and you want to go over and do that. And you start neglecting this and you go over there. Then you basically start finding yourself that you're basically not in this business, you're not in that business, you're all over the place. And you just can't concentrate on everything. So be very clear. What is it that you want? And the other thing is have confidence. Even as a young person, if you have the mindset and you have the entrepreneurial spirit, you'll know you have it. It's a gut feeling. And sometimes that gut feeling saves you from yourself, if you see what I mean. It stops you from doing the wrong things, but you also then learn from the things that are not quite right. This is not sitting very well with me. Just believe in yourself.
Beautiful. Vinay, thank you so much. One last question. If you had access to a billboard that is in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
I would say just be resilient, have confidence, and have a clear plan.
Beautiful.
I think, without those sort of words on a billboard to say people, it's going to be okay, it's a difficult call, and I think a lot of people sadly lose track many times, and you just have to just make sure you guide them again. So yeah, I just think, and have faith. I definitely have faith. You like yourself, I'm not a particularly religious person, but I still pray every day. I still, bless, thank God for all the blessings that we have, bad times and good, because ultimately, look, God gives you tests sometimes. You have to embrace those tests and say, look, God has got something better planned for me. And, with time, once I prove myself that I'm on this journey, then you'll be blessed.
It's true. What you said is so true, and so much wisdom. All things come together for good for those who love God. And that's what you're saying. People don't understand that problems, mistakes, failures gives you huge lessons. You and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those mistakes. So God allows us to go through these trials, tribulations, these tests to make a better versions of ourselves, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I think with experience, you start being more humble.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing. And you start accepting that, what, your world is what you make it. You accept what it is you've got. It doesn't matter what the next person's got. It doesn't matter what the person behind you's got. It's more a case of, are you happy with what you've got?
Yeah.
And you know, and just be mindful that we're not chasing all those shiny stars all the time. You know, enjoy the time you have. It is a short time we all have on Earth, you know, and we must make the most of that time.
Yeah. Beautiful. Vinay, you will always welcome here. Thank you for your amazing wisdom. If people like to find you, if they would like to invest in your firm being so successful, where can they find you online?
Yes, vswealth.co.uk is my website, which I think is in that top corner. And obviously my telephone numbers are also there in the top right-hand corner as well.
Fantastic. Vinay, thank you so much, brother. Have a wonderful rest of the week and God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you, David.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.